Hello and welcome to Intriguing Realms. This story concerns a troubled spirit with unresolved issues. It's a story we call The Landlady. The story begins in the early 2000s when Stephen, a friend of mine, had just started a new job as the manager of a pub in Brighton. It was a very old building and had been a public house since Victorian times. Most of the customers were gay women, and Stephen and I were often the only two men in the bar. On one such night, just after closing time, we were sitting chatting and laughing on one of the sofas. I suddenly caught something out of the corner of my eye. A wine glass had moved just slightly on the shelf behind the bar. Stephen laughed and told me that it was Lizzie. She was the resident ghost and particularly disliked men. I laughed it off, thinking he was just trying to scare me, and we carried on our previous conversation. 10 minutes later, the glass smashed onto the floor. A stunned silence. No one was behind the bar, and there was no apparent reason as to why that should happen. Stephen seemed unrattled. "Oh, it happens all the time," he said, "especially when there are men around." He went on to describe something that had happened to him just after he started the job. He was locking up late one night, alone, and putting some things away down in the cellar. The cellar was dark and cold, with a musty smell. A single bulb hung in the center of the room, casting long, dark shadows. He finished his work and started back up the stairs. The door had swung closed behind him, and he was surprised to find that it wouldn't open. There was no key or latch, and it felt as if someone was on the opposite side of the door holding it closed. He rattled the door and shouted out, thinking that one of the staff was having a joke with him. 5 minutes passed and he grew increasingly angry. The joke had gone on far too long. Then suddenly, the door released. He rushed out into the bar expecting to catch the culprit and have a laugh about it, but the bar was empty. He ran through to the secondary bar. Again empty. He felt a tingle down the back of his neck. Whoever it was must have run into the toilets to hide, he thought, and there was no other way out from there. He crossed the room past the pool table towards the toilet door. Then, just as he passed the pool table, he felt a sudden shove in his back, and he was propelled forwards against the wall. No one to be seen, and no one in the toilets. After that, he took the stories about Lizzie much more seriously. Every few weeks he would be in the cellar and the door would again close and stick. "Come on, Lizzie," Stephen would cry out, and usually the door released soon after. He avoided the pool table area as much as he could. Lizzie didn't feel like a malevolent presence, more like a prankster who really didn't like him. It was only after Stephen had left the job that we found out Lizzie's true story. It was a previous manager who told us. Lizzie and her husband had owned the pub back in the late 1800s. They had a tempestuous relationship, and the husband often beat her. One night they had a huge argument, and he beat her to death in the room where the pool table now was. So it seems her spirit was never at peace, and still resided in the pub. The strange thing was, women were never the victims of her pranks, only men. Having died from an abusive relationship, Lizzie just didn't like men. So if a group of men came to the bar, things were likely to happen, and having a resident male landlord was a really bad idea. Today, the bar has an all-female staff and a female landlady, so Lizzie remains inactive, if not completely at peace. If you have had a true supernatural experience, please send it to us at IntriguingRealms@gmail.com, and we may feature it on the channel. Join us next time and don't forget to like and subscribe. We publish new content weekly. Sweet dreams.